shall we begin? Because our language today is English, and the opportunity for this is a visit of a friend of His Excellency, the Ambassador of the Kingdom of Denmark, Kristіан Dons Christensen. And first of all, I would like to welcome Your Excellency here at the Ukrainian Catholic University. For us, it's really a great honor to have you with us today. And I would like also to take this opportunity and in your person to express gratitude to the Denmark, to your country, to your government for continuous, ongoing actually, and generous support of our university, particularly of the School of Journalism and Media Communication. I assume that you have been briefed, perhaps, what projects you are supporting, or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and some organizations that help you in this regard. But I will still mention it to the audience here. Some of these projects are like School of International Journalism. There were several actually editions already of this school. As well, there is a project, Student Media Symposium, supported by my media. Another project is France, how to say, outside or from outside of this Bruch, river. This means from central and eastern Ukraine. And last but not least, we were supported by the generosity in this way that some of our students from eastern and southern Ukraine received scholarships to study in this school. And I would like to emphasize this very much, not only because, these are young people who will be in charge of the future of Ukraine, of its success in the future, but also that it was very in line in the spirit of our university, which after the Revolution of Dignity declared as one of its priorities to knit Ukraine together. First of all, to bring Ukraine together, first of all, by exchange of young people. And thanks to your support, our School of Journalism and Media Communication got many students from different regions of our country. Actually, as I mentioned already in our private conversation, it's a leading structure institution in our university in this regard. I would like also, to, since I think many of us know that you love languages, and your video where you greeted people, invited people to visit the days of Denmark here in Lviv was quite popular. But still, we here at university know that we have to go high. We always have to try to go even more high. And I wanted to take this occasion and to present to you the number of textbooks which were issued by our School of Ukrainian Language and Culture about Ukrainian as a second language. I'm sure that you will enjoy them. And now it's my pleasure, to invite His Excellency Kristіан Dons Christensen to give a talk about, Happy Denmark. I'm especially interested in this topic, by the way, because, my PhD dissertation in philosophy was about happiness. So I hope that at some point I will have opportunity to visit Denmark and test it, on the ground. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I don't know whether perhaps perhaps to use this one?
Yeah, sure.
It will make it more freely, and I hope the cameras will follow me around. I'd like to start out by a few things, so to get that straight. I was very pleased to be introduced as His Excellency, but we will start with one thing. His Excellency will drop the tie and unbutton the shirt, and that's all you get for now. So, because really I would like this to be an interactive discussion with you guys. I'm very pleased to be here today at Yoko, to be Lviv, and to have this occasion to spend an hour with you and have an open discussion of the things that touches the youth in Lviv and region, and the things that touches us in Denmark, and the relationship between Denmark and Ukraine, and how Denmark actually tries to support Ukraine in its present transitional period. So this is the first thing, off with the tie, interactive. Next thing on my agenda. The next thing on my agenda on my agenda is the interactiveness of a tweet. So I'd like to smile. Smile to the camera. How do we do that? Like that. Okay. And immediately, as we speak, we will make sure that this appears on the social media. I saw a lot of iPhones and tablets when I entered this room, and I'm sure at a department, a School of Journalism and Media Communications, you will be using them all the time. Now you will also be looking for yourself at DK in Ukraine on Twitter. Just a second, let's see. Crazy smile I had there, but never mind, you know, that you have to give something of yourself to the public, right? To communicate. Tweet, it's out there. Anyway, being at a School of Journalism as a diplomat is something very special for me, but not as unique and uncommon to me as you may think. I'm actually married to a journalist, and my oldest daughter that has just finished her school in Denmark to become a journalist, and as a journalist now. Now my wife, who's a journalist, normally says that the difference between the two tasks, the two jobs of ours, is that my job, Kristen's job, is to turn the interesting into something boring. And her job is to turn the boring into something interesting. And I think actually that goes very well in terms of explaining what the difference is between a diplomat and a journalist. You really have to communicate. I have to make sure that everybody are happy after I communicated. So I hope I can achieve that aim by discussing with you today also. But I'm also sure that I will be able to do so because the Danish policies when it comes to Ukraine are indeed extremely supportive. So unless you have used your scholarships to invite even further Eastern students to the school, then I think we will have a good time together. Now, I wanted to first of all talk a little bit about the Danish Days in Lviv that we have organized and that this meeting is part of. You will see sort of the roll-up over here, and I think also even behind. It's a 14 days of effort to come a little bit away from Kiev. We are probably as diplomats and as an embassy, we tend to focus on our near surroundings. I think that goes for every human being. You focus on your near surroundings, but we have also realized that we really need to get out and to have an open discussion with all the cities and regions of Ukraine. So we decided and were helped by a public diplomacy fund from our Ministry for Foreign Affairs to reach out. And this is the first attempt. We decided to go to Lviv, first of all, and that is because we already have a quite long-term relationship to Lviv. We have a fairly large Danish business community in Lviv and in the western part of Ukraine in general. So that is why already I come fairly often. I've been the Danish ambassador for a little more than a year, and this is already my fourth visit to Lviv. First visit to Ukraine. Not last. What we are trying to achieve here is, first of all, to send the signal that Denmark is a friend of Ukraine, and that we are a long-term partner, and that we want to partner with Ukraine in a whole area, a broad scope of areas, and we want to deepen our relationship within each of the elements in this. This particular time we have put together a program that focuses both somewhat on history, because Lviv has a long and rich history behind it, and yesterday I opened with Mayor Salvi a plate at a building, a historical building, where we had once a honorary consulate of Denmark between the wars. From 1908 until 39, we had an honorary consulate in Lviv. And we have also some cultural elements. I recognize some faces from the film that we showed yesterday in this audience. And we are showing 10, we have been showing 10 films, Danish films here in Lviv for the past 10 days. And we can still manage, I think, tonight or tomorrow to see the last two ones, but that's not important. The important thing here is that culture also is an important issue. Then I think that there's something that we need to recognize, that there's a modernity. I mean, I actually, as a diplomat, and I'll be completely honest with you, in many countries there is this, how can you put it? You are elevating representatives of the diplomatic corps, and you think that they are here to sort of, only open exhibitions and cut ribbons, and that's the kind of stuff that a diplomat does. And I'm of course happy to represent Denmark in those cases, but what I really want to do is to connect people, to connect businesses, to connect authorities, to create change. That is important. Change in a modern world. That is really what counts. I mean, we can recognize relationships, we can recognize history, we can recognize culture. It's not unimportant. I'm not saying that, but what we really want to do is to create relations that lead to change today. That's why we put the subtitle, Modern Cities, Happy Citizens, for the theme of our Danish state. Because it's not only about Denmark, it's about something modern. We all live in modern cities. People made relations before us. We are happy. They paved the way to some extent. But we are the ones that are responsible for our lives, and not only for our lives, but for the situation around us in our communities. And here I'm gradually moving towards, I mean, I think that connects us. I mean, that is a similarity between Ukraine and Denmark and all other communities, all other well-functioning communities in the world, is a sense of community spirit and an engagement in your own time and your own society. Now, I know, and you know, that Denmark and Ukraine are very different societies, very different countries, completely separated by geography and by culture and by history. So obviously we are different, our situations differ, our conditions differ, but that does not mean that we cannot exchange best practices, and in particular in a situation where Ukraine is changing. I think it is important to share those practices without at all wanting you to be like us, because nobody wants anybody else to be, you know, our picture, or should want at least, but at least to show and showcase that solutions are out there, that other countries met the same challenges that you are meeting now before, and develop their own replies and answers to them that can now be shared, so as to make, perhaps you can say that Denmark in some cases, when it comes to renewable energy and energy efficiency and waste, water treatment and waste treatment, in all these areas of becoming a green economy, a green state. Denmark was a first mover, but Ukraine can actually become a fast mover if you do not repeat our mistakes, if you take advantage of the know-how and the technologies that Danish authorities have built up, but also Danish businesses and who possess now state-of-the-art, world-leading technologies. So this is also part of our Danish days. I'm continuing after this discussion. I'm continuing to moderate a discussion at the Lvив Eco Forum in the arena in Lvив this afternoon, where we have 2.5 hours of bringing the Danish way, the Danish experience in addressing the challenges of modern urban living to Lviv, to Ukraine. So we have invited a Danish practitioner, we have Danish companies. They are there not to talk about their products, but to talk about the projects that they have been involved in. So they're not selling pumps, but they are showcasing how it actually can be done. So my main message, normally when I come around, is change is possible. And change starts with belief that change can happen. And this is really something that is close to my heart, and I want to just appreciate the number of young faces that are in here, and I know that each and every one of you are thinking, how can I make that particular individual contribution? Not in a way that would sort of spoil your own career, because you have to think about your own career and your own life and your own conditions. But I know that in a young person's heart, I know that from myself and from my children, there exists this wish to be part of something bigger than just you, just your own little life. I mean, that is really the key the key driver. It has been the key driver for myself in my own life. I can perhaps just reveal. I mean, how come that I have translated Akudin? You may ask. I'm just a very normal Danish guy, born and grew up in the province of Denmark, far away from Copenhagen, and you know, I was good at school. What can I say? But you know, I didn't expect to be able to. When I finished high school, I didn't expect to be able to know another language in 2 years' time. But then I was drafted by the Danish military. This was the final 2 years of the Cold War, and we were actually educating some of our, two handfuls of our soldiers in the Russian language in order to be greeting, I suppose, the 28 armies that would, come visit us in a very hostile way. So that's what that's the reason why I know Russian today, and I guess that's also the reason why I started taking a keen interest in the whole developments in this area of the world. Because language, and I thank you so much for this, language is the key to culture. Language is the key to culture. So I'm pleased that I'm able to speak to you now in English. It is a key, I mean, and you should all be very pleased that you actually are able to understand me and communicate in English. It is the key to culture. It's the key to understanding the culture of the broader European family that you are a member of. And in my case, it was also the key to try to understand this particular area of the world being somehow both very similar and very different from my own experience. So, I could make it a long story, I won't, because I want to hear questions from you as well, but I want to make the point that even being, in a Danish comparison, I think, somewhat unique in knowing the Russian language at least, if not yet the Ukrainian language, even being unique in the sense that I have followed and studied and worked in Moscow and followed the developments for the past 25 years here. Even with that uniqueness, I think, to be honest, many of us who thought we knew Russia, thought we knew the post-Soviet republics, we perhaps did, after all, not appreciate sufficiently the depth of the particular Ukrainian nation. And I think that many of us understood that only after Maidan. We saw the Orange Revolution. You were very young at that time. We saw it more like a protest against an election that had been stolen, so to say. So we saw more the surface of the lack of democracy rather than the depth of the national spirit of this country. A spirit that actually has nothing to do with language, but is a spirit that sort of, that's at least my feeling, and you correct me if I'm wrong, and I would really be pleased for you to counter my argument, but the argument and my own impression here, after serving 1 year in Ukraine, is that this feeling of a coherent, separate nation is what drives a lot of the developments that we see now in Ukraine. Now, there's a lot of discussion about whether that development leads to a European track or perhaps somewhat in between. I think now being in the western part of Ukraine, the discussion is perhaps not as unclear as it is in the rest of Ukraine, but still there's this feeling of coherence in the Ukrainian society that I am extremely pleased to see, and that, again, I'm being honest, that I think many of us only discovered late. So one message is to you, the young generation here, is don't fail to use this opportunity that you have now. This is really your window of opportunity. Open it, go through it, and know that if you don't do it, nobody else will. We can, from the Danish side of you, from the Danish side, we have a very clear policy of support for Ukraine, so we can support you. We are tough on sanctions against Russia. We have a principled approach on the Russian aggression. It is unacceptable, and it is violating both the sovereignty of Ukraine, but also international fundamental principles and norms that form the basis for our present security landscape in Europe. So that's the basis for our strong support. We are strong on sanctions. We do not recognize Crimea. We do not the illegal annexation of Crimea. We do not we insist on full implementation of Minsk, including restoration of the border to Russia. So strong on aggression, against aggression, with Ukraine against aggression. But we're also very strong on the support for the reform process in Ukraine. And in fact, my own view is that the success of the reform process is much more important for the long-term strategic survival of an independent and successful Ukraine than the also important effort to counter the Russian aggression. So one message is, don't let the defense, the conflict in the East, the problems with Crimea, don't let it become an excuse for lack of progress when it comes to reforms. Am I overspending my time? I am perhaps a little bit. Now, last thing, I'm strong supporter against Russian aggression, strong on support for reforms, but we also want to invest in building new ties, open for business, open for people-to-people contacts, open for relations, because we think that this is also a key requirement for a long-term relationship between Ukraine and Denmark. And I know personally that, I don't know that I speak for all of you, but at least from my own life, you start out as a young person and you are extremely engaged, and you're also somewhat preoccupied with your own life. But in becoming, somewhat more seasoned, I'm looking at you, Taras, as my colleague here, you're also looking back, you understand that change does not happen only because of individuals. It happens actually because individuals come together and in dialogue and in groups and form societies and associations and join a school like this. I was really impressed just before when Taras showed me around. He told me one particular small piece of information. He told me that some of the first graduates from the School of Journalism and Media Communications had actually funded a scholarship for to bring in some new students to the same faculty. It is that kind of community spirit that hands on the baton, that builds a feeling that you are part of something bigger than yourself, and it does not come out of nothing. It comes out of individual initiative, but you have to form the groups that can do this in so many ways and levels, and together, perhaps not coordinated, but together it will move Ukraine forward. And I'm looking forward to that, to see that materialize. And I think I will end my introductory remarks here, because I do want to talk on issues that are on your mind. You are free to ask questions about Denmark and Ukraine, or just come up with comments on your own situation. I really want this to be an interactive discussion. So I leave it there, and would like to hear if there are any questions.
Dear friends, we have a microphone over there, so just please raise your hands, and our Irina will approach you. And please ask your questions. You have a wonderful chance right now.
Hello, I'm Katina from School of Journalism of Ukrainian Catholic University. My question is, we know that in Greenland there are the highest suicide rates in the world. And one of the main causes for that is the globalization of Danish globalizing politics. So is there any change in that politics right now? And please tell me about that. Thank you.
I like that question because I shouldn't have turned it off. Now it will not turn on again.
Just try up the button.
I guess you can see that. Okay. Greenland. There you are. Greenland. Yes, I'm representing a kingdom. First of all, I'm representing the kingdom of Denmark, and it has three constituting parts. It has what we normally refer to as Denmark, but it also includes Greenland and the Faroe Islands between Denmark and Greenland. And these two parts were once sort of colonial parts of the Danish kingdom. I hesitate to call it empire. We were once big, and we ruled the north, but as one Danish historian has put it, through a series of successful defeats, Denmark became the harmonious country that we are today. In other words, we sort of lost territory to one side, to the south, to the east, to Sweden, and so gradually we became the harmonious nation state that we are, inhabited only by Danes. However, Greenland and the Faroe Islands stayed with the Danish kingdom. And you are right that even far up into the 1950s and 60s, we had special laws for Greenland, and we had special practices that were built on a completely flawed conception of the Greenlandic indigenous population not really being able to take sound decisions on their own behalf. So we were, in a sense, taking over the parenthood, or taking upon ourselves some kind of parent status for children that were not able to decide on their own. I think many, if not all Danes today, understand that this was a completely wrong direction. And over the past 40 years, we have seen a gradual development towards self-governance and delegation of more and more authority to Greenland. And we have even decided, and we've said openly, that Greenland can become completely independent one day when they so decide themselves. For now, this is not an option to do right now, because Greenland is also a very poor society. Only 50,000 people live there, but they live under poor conditions, difficult conditions, and they really need the subsidies that made Denmark continuously move towards Greenland. But they have already achieved self-governance rights, and they have their own parliament and their own prime minister to decide over internal issues, such as social issues. So the social issues are not any longer the Danish government's responsibility to address, such as suicide rate and so on, but you're right in stating that social issues do not just change with change of governance or government. They have deeper roots and are more difficult to address. They need a long-term strategy to address it. So while I'm agreeing with you that the Danish colonialism is to blame for many of the problems in Greenland today, it is also a fact of the past. So what we want to do now is to help Greenland address this particular. Aha, there you go. Okay. So that's my long answer to a very short and good question. We do know that we have what we call skeletons in the closet, but we are trying to open those closets to bring out the skeletons, to talk about them in an open way, and to see how we move from here. Because there's no reason to try to hide your past. There's no reason to try to hide the culture that has formed you as the culture that you are. There's a question.
We have one more question in behind, if possible.
Yes,
and then
please.
maybe you can move.
Thank you. My name is Anastasia, and as you told, the language is key for the culture. And I want to ask about the Danish language. How is it possible for the Ukrainians who already know Danish a little bit to practice it in Lviv? as I have been living in Denmark for 1.5 years, and I'm starting to forget the language, and I don't want to do that. So is it possible to make a kind of lessons or something like that for the Ukrainians?
Anastasia. Well, is it possible? I would love to have much more Danish-speaking Ukrainians join together. But as I might sort of revert back to what we spoke about, what I said in my introduction, these things are made by communities, by society. So you have to find others with the same interest and build a critical mass, and then we can support also your contacts with Danish teachers. I know, as I said, that there is a certain community in Lviv, so perhaps actually there could be a wish for someone, a spouse or the like, to come and have a couple of hours on a weekly basis to just maintain the Danish language for those who would please who would like to. Okay, let's. There will be more questions. Let us just take a couple of these to.
The first one is mine. I already asked it anyway. So.
The first one.
Yeah.
Susan, that's already great, Katka. So Melanie, what is your personal favorite thing about Ukraine? Ooh, that's a not only difficult but also dangerous one, right? As a diplomat, I'm already thinking about something nice and uncontroversial. I like Kyiv Botanical Garden, the new one, where I like to run every second day. I'll run 6 kilometers, and I like it very much. It has beautiful views over golden couples and greenery, and I run around the year. And that is actually something that I really need, because when I was in Denmark, most of my life, I have been bicycling, and I use bicycle not for fun but for transportation. We own no car. We are perfectly able to buy a car because we are economically able to buy it, but we don't buy it because if you have it, you use it. So don't use your bike, and we teach our children, and we have now 3 children, and they, we tell them to participate in any kind of sports activity, so you can transport yourselves on a bike or with public transportation, and they go out and they do that. So we have no car, and when we need it, we can rent one when we really need to go far away. But here, of course, as an excellency, I have a car and a driver, and I sit in the back every day, and I get driven around to meetings and so on. So I really need that kind of mental refreshment that is entailed in jogging in Kyiv Botanical Garden. So this question: do you really hate the Swedes in Denmark? Smiley. I should tell you that Hirden is the Danish title of the film that was shown yesterday, called in English "In a Better World," and in Ukrainian.
It's a translation from heaven, Pomsta.
Yeah. So in that film that we watched yesterday, and this Yudaviet has apparently also watched it, because there is a conflict even within our own society with what you would probably refer to as a social group 5, or I don't know whether you have social groups as well, but from social sciences you tend to categorize some people from different segments, and social group 5 in our case is sort of low life, to put it. And he confronts a Swede and tells him to get back to his own country on the other side of the strait that divides Denmark and Sweden. Obviously, prejudice like that exists, but it is not characteristic for the Danish society. For the Danish society, I would say the characteristics include a great level of trust, which, by the way, Taras asked for the reasons for Denmark being ranked, repeatedly ranked as the happiest nation in the world, or the happiest people in the world. I think the level of trust plays a huge role in this. And trust is not something that comes by itself, and it can be easily destroyed, and it takes, constant support from each and every individual to maintain a level of trust. But it is, when it is there, it is really the recipe for a happy people. And when I say happy people, it has to be understood. You said you had studied it yourself, Taras, and I find that interesting. But there are differences in terms of what we refer to when we talk about happiness. Some would refer to the immediate, short-term feeling of happiness, satisfaction, and we're not talking about that, because putting a ring on the finger of your loved one is something that brings everybody immediate satisfaction and immediate happiness. Graduating from the school of journalism and media communications would be another thing, right? It provides you with some satisfaction. But what we're talking about in terms of happiness ranking is a feeling of long-term happiness, the feeling of satisfaction with your life as it is, with your society as it looks, with your relations as they have established themselves. So that's the kind of happiness where Denmark are repeatedly ranked number one. When it comes to immediate satisfaction, by the way, we are quite often ranked lower because we are also very critical people. We're not, just happy-go-lucky people. We are also critical against our authorities, against the way we live. By the way, you can actually see where people are most unhappy in Denmark, and that's while commuting back and forth from work. You go to work in the morning, public transportation, and I'm telling you this because we will soon enough come to our blogging competition, and a lot of you, if you are here today, actually contributed with pointing out to the Lviv transportation system. So there was another question over here.
Hi, my name is Vitaly. I would like to ask about the greatest mistakes of Denmark in regards to green economy that you wouldn't like Ukraine to repeat.
You should invite an expert then. I guess my experience is more of a it is in modern time. I think that I will not be able to call it the greatest mistakes, because I have no knowledge that would support that. I can tell you that one of the achievements that has been made is actually to organize ourselves in a way that the aim for a green economy has been supported by job creation in the green industry. Because there was a mistake, if you can talk about a mistake, in the beginning we had this overall approach of trying to say green, environment, ecological values are values. They are over here. And industry and business and growth and economy is over here. So we can only afford the green ambitions to the extent that our economy allowed it. And only in time we were able to understand that there is a much closer link between the two. That a green economy can actually create jobs, because the world market out there is huge. So if you move into the green economy, not only will it help your own environment, but it will also create the know-how and the industry that you can use to sell for China, or for South Africa, or all around the globe. And in that sense, it pays off to catch the wave, to use the strategic planning to say, okay, let's not be behind the wave. Let's go in front of the wave, because with increasing numbers of inhabitants on this earth and increasing numbers of middle-class people, we are bound to have even larger challenges in the future. So even though Denmark sort of started that 40 years ago, we are still, the wave is only just starting. Natalia, does that mean that we are...
The last
okay?
question.
Last question, yes.
Perhaps there's more questions?
So is there something up there?
Probably two more questions. This one. Okay, so may I ask you?
Yes. Yes.
My question is, I mentioned to you, Your Excellency, I lived in Copenhagen at Nørrebrogade Street in 2000, and that street, it was famous at that time that we could count about, I don't know, 200 plus nationalities which lived there, and it was very safe, very trusted among people, and very diverse at the same time. And we know that we see that in Europe, in many countries, now it's the opposite trend, you know, that countries become close. And my friends are saying that Nørrebrogade is not anymore Nørrebrogade of 2000. So how do you see what can be efforts of the state, you know, and in your particular case, to keep the spirit of this trust among different nationalities which come to your country, to many countries, and including to Denmark?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. I'm not sure I have the authoritative answer to it, but I think it is an extremely important question for today's Europe and for today's Denmark. We have been Denmark, as I told you, we have been for 1,000 years. We have been a kingdom, and we have always been a fairly harmonious nation state with only one nation, the Danes, and they speak Danish, and they eat pork, and that's what they do. That's what we do. We produce pork also, and we eat pork. And then with globalization, and in particular with flows of refugees and migration patterns, we have suddenly been challenged on our openness, on our inclusiveness. Another reason for a very happy nation is that we have a very well-developed welfare state. It provides a high level of security and support for those who cannot support themselves. And migrants and refugees often can't. And therefore, it suddenly puts pressure on this highly developed welfare state to also support a lot of newcomers and to include them and to integrate them in the Danish society. And that leads to conflict. Obviously, it leads to conflict. And I think that it is not only a Danish realization, but a European one, that there is a limit, not has to be, but there is a limit as to what a country can stomach in a short run in terms of influx of other cultures and other approaches and less and people less able to support themselves. So there is a limit. The question is where this limit is and what to do with those that does come in. And that is again, that's where I don't have the authoritative answer, but I can only try to reinforce the dilemma and that you raise, and to reinforce that it is a real dilemma, and it is also influencing today's Denmark. And I do agree with you that whatever we do, we must do it in a way that brings us through these challenges by, at the same time, maintaining our open approach and our values towards helping people in need. So that's a very, very delicate balance, because we are, after all, 5 million Danes, and I think that's only a drop of in terms of the number of people that are in dire need in today's world. So, with these words, sinister words, but also very pertinent and important words on the current state of our common European space, I think it is now time to move towards the contest. To move towards our last agenda item for today, and I am pleased to give the floor to our good colleague, and yes, please, I will stay here.
So thank you. There are some questions left on your Twitter, so I think you may answer them later on. Yes, and also, so that's now my great pleasure to have a short address about our contest that was entitled "Challenges for Urban Life. Where is the Danish experience relevant?" So the contest was conducted for journalists, bloggers, but also students of various faculties within the Danish days in Lviv, and where this contest was conducted only for those who work in Lviv city or in Lviv region, or who worked or who studied here. The contest was held by the Royal Danish Embassy in Ukraine in cooperation with our great friend and partner, MyMedia, and our MA program on media communications here at the Ukrainian Catholic University. Let me introduce you the three members of the jury for the contest. So the first one and the head of our jury, it's actually His Excellency, even without a title. Kristіан Dons Christensen, Ambassador of Denmark to Ukraine, Georgia and Armenia. And here I need to add right now the background information, a husband of a journalist and a father of a journalist as well. The second member of our jury is Henry Kalfolds, staff reporter with Political Denmark since 1990. And since 2003, coordinator of Scoop Ukraine in a voluntary basis. Scoop Ukraine is a support structure for investigative reporting, and he reported from Ukraine and published approximately 150 articles. Unfortunately, he is not with us right now, but he has asked me to say hello to all the guests right now during those wonderful Danish days here in Lviv. And the third member, it's Maria Titarenko, it's me. I'm here associate professor of journalism and media communication at the Ukrainian Catholic University. I'm teaching essay writing, but also I'm writing essays as well. So a couple words about the quality, about the style, about the format of those works. We received 32 applications, just imagine, very many. Among those 32 applications, including essays and cover letters or motivation letters and biographies of the authors, we have very, very many formats, including purely essays, non-fiction pieces, research pieces. Even one piece was of a PhD research of one author. We had also different formats of a dialogue. We had a travelogue with pictures, including experience of the author while being in Copenhagen. But also we have two different types of essays. One part was more hero-oriented. Another part was more problem-oriented. Among those problems indicated in those majority of essays were probably on the top, it's a bicycle topic and infrastructure for bicycles. Then it was water and waste utilization and others, infrastructure for retired people, but also smart city, anti-corruption program, and many, many more. But probably the famous state that was almost in every second essay is what they state that Denmark is the happiest country according to the survey. Many authors use just Google to Google what Denmark is and what they may write about it. But one author was very original. The author asked on her Facebook page, Ukrainians who live in Denmark, so what are those problems? And she did a little series of that. This method was very interesting, very interactive. Also, what I need to say is that it was for us, for jury members, a dilemma what to create more. By the way, all the works, all the essays and cover letters were coded, so we created works anonymously, without faceless, nameless. And the problem for us was what to create more, the context of the essay or the style. Because the part of the essays were very strong because of their content. I'm sorry, yeah, the topic thought through. But another part was very strong and very elegantly stylish written. So we seeked for the balance within those essays. And also, I need to mention here that that's it. Now we can switch directly to the winners, and here are the envelopes.
There are 2 winners. We have 2 winners, and I don't know whether they are in this room today, but let's see. I will now winner this Oscar nomination. Aha. I recognize this name, and I do remember the essay that was presented to support it. It was an essay that struck all of us with its style. It actually turned our somewhat factual exhibition, poster exhibition on Happy Danes, which will now be on display at UQ for the next 10-14 days. It turned the factual part of that exhibition into a lively dialogue. So I would like to invite, if he's here today, Mr. Dmitro Plachta. Who is here today? You are lovely.
Trip to Denmark, 1-week trip, professional but also cultural trip there.
Indeed. We look forward to seeing you in Denmark. Applause for you.
And by the way, who wants to read the essay may read it. It's available on the internet on a daily newspaper day. So you may Google it right now.
So, and Dmitro, we also hope to be allowed to publish it on our website afterwards. And that goes as well for the next winner, that we hope we will be allowed to publish her contribution. It is a her. Now, this name I also recognize, and I do remember the contribution. This was actually one of the hero-based contributions, and we liked it, all 3 of us, because it was written in a very lively, very elegant and very engaged way. So, by the way, all of the contributions showed huge engagement, and that combines them, even though they were very different, as you said, all of them were engaged. Now, this particular one was made a particular impression on us, and on me. It also made an impression when it comes to experiences of the Danish society that you were asked to, the contributors were asked to address. It does not list a long list of lessons learned that can be used in a Ukrainian context. It focuses only on one issue, but that issue has to do with inclusiveness, with respect for all groups in a society, that all groups are part of society and should be included. This is something that we have as a very important part of our Danish culture and a Danish value, and I think I liked it very much when I read this particular essay on Elderly Care and Inclusiveness by Oksana Azhnuk. Are you here, Oksana?
Doing a project connected with children, how to work with them, and we're now trying to call her on phone.
I write this information here.
Give us just 1 minute. We may try to call her on Skype because she's in Georgia and the connection there is not very good. She's online.
Yeah. If anyone has her email contact, can you help?
Can you call her right now? We'll do our meeting even more interactive.
Indeed, and modern.
While we're waiting for Oksana here, we also have a little present for our ambassador. So that is something also very informal. You may use it when you get rid of your tie.
It's the shirt of our program.
What about connection? Do we have her somewhere there?
But I do understand that she is a known name here at UQ.
Yes,
so I think I can leave it to you, Maria, to hand over the торжественное диплома.
So we'll put it inside again.
And then I would like to end today's session by thanking all of you, by thanking Taras for being the host of this, and for thanking you, Maria, for being part of our jury. You did an excellent job, and I can confirm that we really did anonymize all the contributions. So even though I understand Oksana is a well-known face from here, she earned it all the way. So I'd like to thank all of you for your questions, I will tell you, the last question was actually from my colleague, the ambassador of the United Kingdom to Kiev, and she asks to have more Danish hygge. Hygge is
Here's Oksana.
Oksana.
Oksana. She's great.
Oksana, how are you?
Do you recognize your friends?
She may see the diploma here. Now you can talk.
Now you can talk again.
You want to tell me some nice news?
Absolutely. Oksana, lots and lots of nice words were said about your essay. You are one of the 2 winners of the essay blogging competition that we issued, and I'm so pleased as the Danish ambassador to Ukraine to give you those good news. We have made a diploma.
Here's your name, sir.
And we were really impressed by your essay, Oksana. We were so impressed by your essay and by the engagement that it emanates, and by the elegance of its form, but also by the fact that it showed something about the Danish society, which I, as a Danish ambassador, is quite proud of, namely inclusion. And it did that by focusing not on a number of issues, but on one issue, the elderly care. So thank you so much, Oksana, for your contribution. Congratulations from the whole room here, and I'd like everybody to put your hands together again for Oksana.